I think that I'm going to get us started. So, just for everybody that's out there, this is Cynthia Morin, who I have known for I don't know how long, Cynthia, maybe
Oh,
a long, I'll just say a long, long time. Cynthia's
yep.
worked at GF for, I don't know that either, but a long time. She's worked in various programs. She's been on outpatients, she's been the educator, she's been on the adolescent program, she has been in the wound clinic, she's been everywhere. So when I asked her to do this, she volunteered really quickly, and we've been working back and forth to get the PowerPoint sort of organized, and it's great. So with that, Cynthia, you've got about 15 people that are all, a bit older that have been through a lot and are really looking forward to sort of having some information about how they might be able to make some changes that they might need to make. So with that, I'll let you go, Cynthia, and we'll chat at the end.
Thank you, Duncan, for that very warm welcome and the reminder about how long that I've been here for. Um, I think you actually might have still been working here as a rec therapist
That's right.
when
That's
I
when you were
first
on
started.
AYA.
Yep. So it's been a while. Thanks everyone for joining today. I'm presenting as a clinician working with people who have had spinal cord injuries of various levels in different communities for different lengths of time. But I am presenting from a clinician point of view. So people with lived experience have lived experience. And so if I'm saying something that you don't agree with, by all means, please speak up. So Duncan's asked me to talk about different transfer techniques. Um, a lot of the client population I work with, their function is slowly changing as they age and the longer out they are from their initial injury. And so transfers can become quite a challenge for people. And so I work with a lot of people who are going through that experience. So the things I'm hoping to go through today are, why would you consider changing your transfer method, especially if you've been doing it quite successfully for a number of years? Talking about all the different types of transfers that are out there, and even within these main transfer types, there's lots of different variations. Um, just go over some of the transfer equipment options, how to prevent injuries and optimize your safety, your caregiver's safety when transferring between surfaces. And if you need to access clinical support, either to explore different methods of transferring or looking at equipment, then I'm going to review that. So let's start off with just reviewing the main types of transfer methods that I see clinically. And again, within these categories, there's a lot of variation. Um, a lot of people will use a manual pivot transfer. That's just the straightforward chair to bed, chair to commode, chair to couch, where you don't use any equipment. It all has to do with weight transfer and using your arms quite a bit and your torso, the weight of your torso to shift your pelvis over. There's the old school legs up transfer method, which actually is not taught anymore when people are going through inpatients, but I still do see it for people who were injured 15, 20 plus years ago, because that was a popular transfer at the time. That's where you put your legs up on the surface and then transfer over. Again, that is either an independent transfer or an assisted transfer if someone is helping the person from the back. Then, of course, you can have the assisted manual pivot transfer where people are helping you often from in front, sometimes from the back. It just depends on what works for you and what's safe for your caregiver or family member or friend assisting you. Then, of course, there's the sliding board or the assisted sliding board transfer and variations on different types of mechanical lift transfers. So I just wanted to review all the different types of transfers that I see clinically that people are doing. And then if you have more of an incomplete injury and you are doing some standing and walking, then some people do standing pivot transfers often with the assistance of a walker. But I'm not going to be talking about weight bearing transfers in this presentation specifically. So the things that we as clinicians ask clients to consider, you may want to consider if you're thinking about um, changing up your transfer method, is as we get older, we tend to lose strength, and that's across the board, with or without a spinal cord injury or a chronic health issue. You kind of hit that 45, 50, 50. 55-year age, and it's much harder to maintain your strength. Of course, people who have spinal cord injuries and are much more reliant on their upper extremities, that would make it more impacting on your function as you get older. And as you lose strength, and if you've had a history of repetitive strain injuries, over the years, you can also increase your potential of having a shoulder injury while you're doing your transfers, because your arms and shoulders take a lot of strain when you're doing transfers. As you also get older, it kind of ties into the loss of strength. Um, there's an increased risk or increased potential of causing injury to yourself as the result of a bad transfer. So it's not uncommon that I'll see people and they've developed a deep tissue pressure injury or some type of shear wound. And after talking through it with them and doing some observation of their function, sometimes the cause can be their transfers because they're either doing a lot of banging while they're doing their transfer on their wheelchair frame or on the car frame, or they're landing hard, so that can cause injury. Why you also might want to take a close look at your transfers is to optimize your transfers to preserve your independence. And I'm not specifically talking about optimizing your ability to do your independent transfers. I'm talking about optimizing your independence in general. So trying to reduce your risk of pressure injury, reduce your risk of having a shoulder injury, because if you have any of those issues, then that can affect your independence in all of your daily activities. And then really thinking about how you can best maintain your independence with doing car transfers and driving. So that might be some of the reasons why you might start taking a closer look at how you're doing your transfer technique. So these are just some examples that I look at with clients, depending on what type of transfer they want to consider. There's a lot of different types of transfer aids out there. This is just a smattering of them. But there's a whole degree from a simple sliding board or a nylon slider sheet to a more a more detailed system like a commode tub slide system or a mechanical lift. And even within a mechanical lift, there's a lot of different options. And then as well with the different car transfer aids that you can look at. So there's a lot available out there to optimize your transfers and make them a little bit easier if you're starting to notice that they're becoming more difficult.
Can I ask a
Um,
question? What's a sliding sheet? What's that?
so a slider sheet, we actually use these quite a bit with people who are finding that transfers are a little bit more difficult or to protect their skin when they're doing either changing their position in bed or doing transfers. Does anyone on the line have experience with slider sheets?
I do. And they're great. They're what they are is just a very slippery material that you put on your sliding board or on your bed or wherever you're transferring to or using to transfer, and it makes you slide across easier. So you're not sticking to the board and you're not sticking to anything and shearing your skin.
So it's actually a very simple design. We at GF Strong, our rehab assistants make nylon covers for sliding boards. So it can either go on the cover or it can either go on a sliding board to cover it. Or we also have slider sheets where it's basically two layers of nylon that are connected and they slide against each other. And the whole idea is to reduce the friction for when you're transferring or moving. Okay, and that can make it easier to transfer, requiring less strength, less strain on your arms. And it can also be protective of your skin because you're reducing the friction force on your skin.
I,
Anyone else have any questions?
yeah, I've been using that for a few years now, and yeah, it's really helpful. I use it on my bed when I'm transferred. Yeah, it just makes it easier.
Okay.
And they're pretty portable. You can just kind of fold them up. They're kind of like a t-shirt size. You just fold them up and put them in, your backpack or whatever. They're not too difficult to take around with you if you are doing your transfers kind of away from your home.
Cynthia, it's Linda. I was going to say that when I travel, I take baby powder. I
Okay.
put baby powder on my sliding board and on the sheets to make it more slippy.
Okay, so that would be the same concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't actually done that with a client, so that's a good tip.
I think outside the like to or from a shower bench is the hardest because usually you don't have pants on and so yeah, that would help in that situation. And I know sometimes my husband it kind of soaps it up, but that can get kind of dangerous too. You don't have to be super slippery.
Yeah, the kind of sticky skin can be a real challenge, especially because when you come out of the shower, of course, your skin is damp. And when it's moist, it's more fragile. So that kind of leads nicely to the next slide, which is just the different types of sliding boards. So if you're looking at, or if you're considering or have been doing sliding board transfers, there's also, lots of different shapes of sliding board transfers or sliding boards. There's some with a movable disc. So you kind of perch yourself on the disc and then it kind of slides over for it with you. There's curved ones, there's long ones, there's short ones, there's ones with handles or holes cut out in them so it's easier to grip. There's built-in sliding boards, so there's lots of different options that could be applicable for each person's function and then different environments as well. So when you are looking at a sliding board transfer, what it can do is it can reduce the strain on your shoulders, arms, and wrists when you're transferring between surfaces because it bridges the gap. So you don't have to do kind of a lift and then move your body over. You can do a lift and just move it over, couple of inches or 6 inches or halfway, and then take a bit of a rest and then move it over again. You can either use it as a platform to do several lifts and use it as a rest in between the lifts, or you can use it to actually slide on. It depends on your technique and the environments that you're transferring between or the surfaces you're transferring between. It can depend on what you are trying to accomplish with the sliding board transfer. So for example, if you have skin issues, we try to avoid really dragging the skin. So yeah, it's all individual with each person. And it can also increase the safety when you're transferring. So for example, yesterday, I was working with a client who normally does a mechanical lift for a transfer. She is 50 plus years post-injury, and she was needing to look at a different type of transfer because she was going to the dentist. And of course, the dentist office don't have mechanical lifts. So we were practicing sliding board transfers. So she was going to do an assisted sliding board transfer to help bridge that gap between her chair and the dentist chair, because the dentist chair was an uneven level with her chair. And then also, you know, after having a spinal cord injury for 50 years, even though she was a thoracic injury, you know, she's had years of repetitive strain injuries to the shoulders, arthritis in the shoulders, some skin issues over the years. And so she is very cautious with the transfers. So we worked on doing sliding board transfers so that she can do a safe transfer and go to her dentist. So that is an example of how she's changing her transfer technique to maintain her function. Any questions? Okay. So I'm not going to go over the individual steps. This is more just a slide to let you know that there is a certain way of doing the technique for doing a safe sliding board transfer. And I would highly recommend working with someone, working with a clinician who is familiar with doing sliding board transfers if you're going to explore doing that type of transfer, because you want to make sure to maintain your safety. You don't want to be having a fall while you're practicing a new transfer technique. So there are definite steps. And for those of you who remember Daryl Cave, he put together, when he was a physio here, he put together a series of videos, and I'll show you one now, just of different types of transfers. This is a person with a cervical injury who's just going to quickly demonstrate how he does a sliding board transfer. So let's hope this works. So he lines his chair up at a little bit of an angle to the bed. It's not right parallel with the bed. And he moves his feet out a little bit in front of him.
This is really funny because this is well, not funny, but this is a friend of mine.
Does he look a
Uh,
little bit different? Because I have a feeling this
well,
was made a while
yeah,
ago.
he looks a little different now, and he's amazing. I'll tell you that because he's I think he's a C5.
Yeah, so he's really unweighting his pelvis so that he can get out of his chair. And this is a specific technique that some people, not everybody does with resting their head against a chair, but that really just gives him another point of contact for doing a safe transfer. And then you can see he just kind of bumped along, not bumped, but it was a
Yeah,
combination of a lift and slide across
and
the sliding board.
just so you know, he has no triceps.
Duncan, does he put a chair in front of him every time he transfers?
Pretty much, I think, or he finds something that he can put his head up against.
Wow. Okay, but he uses a power bed to help use gravity to help him get in and out though, right?
You know what?
Looks
He
like,
drives too, so he gets in and out of a van
huh,
with this transfer. So I don't think he has the option all the time
wow,
of
good for
using
him.
like a power bed, but he does at home, I'm sure. But he uses the head forward thing all the time.
Wow. I'd be a little afraid of falling that far forward.
Well, he takes some chances. That's Ryan. He's a good guy, and he's done amazing things with what ability he actually has.
I
Yeah,
met
see,
him. He plays tennis, right? Or
Yeah,
table
in a
tennis.
power chair.
ping
Table tennis.
pong. Yeah.
Table tennis.
See, now that chair's in his way, right? For putting his legs up. So,
Well, it's kind of, but I think he, uses it anyway. See, it's not in his way.
well, no, you have to, don't have a choice.
So yeah, so that's a great example of someone who has figured
Yeah,
out a system that works for him, right? You know, it's not easy, but he's able to do it.
yeah.
And again, this video was probably taken 15 years ago. So
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is his exact same transfer style right now, these days.
Uh,
But
I think it is, but I don't
yeah.
know for sure.
But we have in our outpatient program, we do have therapists who are still teaching that style of a sliding board technique. If someone's unable to do a sliding board transfer just by bringing their body forward, So for example, someone who has a C5 injury, I know one of our outpatient therapists are working with a young guy right now who's got a C5 injury, and he really wants to do independent sliding board transfers, but he doesn't have the trunk control to come up if he comes all the way forward. So he's actually learning the same technique where he supports his head so he's not falling all the way forward, and he's able to kind of bring himself back up to sitting because he's not all the way down in his lap. So we'll move on.
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay, so here are just some things to think of and watch out for if you're going to start considering doing sliding board transfers, or if you do them. As much as possible, you want to try and avoid or minimize dragging your buttocks across the seat of your wheelchair and the sliding board. You want the sliding board to make sure it's a slippery surface so that you reduce that friction. You want to try and minimize as much as possible bumping against the frame of the wheelchair. The wheel is something that often people have a hard time staying off of when you're doing a sliding board transfer, even a manual pivot transfer. We have things here that are kind of wheel covers, padded wheel covers. You can also grab a pool noodle and cut it and use that to put it over the wheel, just a bit of a protection. And then you also want to make sure that your feet don't get caught and twisted. Just being mindful of not spraining an ankle or getting any kind of a spiral fracture. So those were sliding board transfers. We'll move now to mechanical lift transfers. I don't know if anyone has any questions about the sliding board transfer. Okay, it can be a very helpful transfer if you're doing manual pivot transfers right now, and sometimes it gets a little bit dicey, but I would recommend working on it with a clinician just to make sure that you don't cause injury to yourself. So the other type of transfer that some people will move to as their transfer method starts to get more and more difficult, more and more challenging, is an overhead lift transfer. So this is a little bit less flexible with where you can do it because, of course, you need the equipment. But it can really increase the safety of the person and the safety of the caregiver when doing a transfer if the transfers are becoming quite difficult. It can be helpful for reducing injury. So if you tend to do, 4 different types of transfers, 6 different types of transfers, meaning that you've got wheelchair to bed, chair to commode or shower bench, chair to vehicle. If you're doing different transfers, if you maybe start considering using a lift transfer for your bed transfers or your bathroom transfers, then it can just reduce your risk of injury when you look at how many overall transfers you do. Sometimes people need to go to a lift transfer if their transfers are becoming more challenging and they're needing more and more assistance. Some personal care companies or home care companies will require people to move to a lift transfer for the safety of the caregiver. Marnie, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question for Cynthia. So
Sure.
I'm listening to the reasons why people use a patient lift. But what I've also noticed is a trend, people leaving GF Strong in more recent years of not maximizing their potential when it comes to transfers. I can't tell you how many what I consider to be strong paraplegics are using a lift and or home support right at the bat out of the GF Strong. And I think everybody here knows that generally speaking, they should be able to do that independently. So what's the rationale for doing that trend now with the therapists?
I can talk about unofficial reasons. I
Mhm.
don't think there's a best practice guideline that's being followed or anything. My thoughts on that are that compared to 15, 20 years ago, the length of stay in at GF
Right.
Strong for rehab is quite a bit
Right.
lower.
It
It's
was
quite a
long.
bit shorter.
No, it was
So
longer 15 years ago, right?
yeah,
Not
it was
short.
longer. So
It's
these days
shorter now.
it's
Yeah.
shorter now.
Mhm.
Yeah, like if you are, regardless of your injury, if you're at GF Strong for more than 3 months, that's considered quite a long admission.
Right. Okay, that makes total sense because I'm glad I got to stay there for 10 months back in the day.
Yeah,
And
there's no way that
I know,
happens
but you know
now.
what? That's really unfortunate for so many reasons. I think it's terrible myself because it puts a huge load on the community and people don't maximize their independence. So, because we just see that in our peers when we're in the community and, you know, we try to help them too. But yeah, I know that that's beyond your control.
Yeah, no, and I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. I think that, um, 15, 20 plus years ago, there was the opportunity to do more of what we call slow stream rehab, which means that you had the time to slowly improve over a greater length of time. Um, you know, uh, right or wrong, depending on what your perspective is. Um, Usually people's tentative discharge dates are discussed within the first 2 weeks of being admitted. That's the way the system is now. So the rehab they get is trying to do as much rehab and as much improvement and function within the time that you've got, and then planning for where the person's function is at the time of their discharge. And the goal would be that they can continue working on these things after discharge. But of course, that is highly variable depending on what access people have to rehab services in their community.
Yeah. And I think for this particular presentation, we're more looking at what you might need as you get older. So, I understand that there's an issue, a perceived issue with rehab and rehab times, but I don't think Cynthia needs to manage that or uh, justify it. So let's just keep going with what we might need as we get older.
Sure. So yeah, with the overhead lifts, the other premise is even if people have a lower injury, depending on their age and their injury level, regardless if they're newly injured or have been injured for many years, an overhead lift transfer is less strain on a person's arms. So if you're looking at trying to optimize your independence in other activities, you may want to save your arms from the risk of an injury or overuse when you're doing your transfers. So I find when you're aging with a spinal cord injury and aging in general, you look for those small areas where you can just overall reduce your loading on joints that are prone to injury, and then trying to save them for the other activities that might be more important for you as an individual. So an overhead lift, that might be why you might consider doing an overhead lift transfer within your home, and then you would have the strength and ability to do other types of transfers outside of your home. Um, I just see a question. Why don't I get through this slide and then we'll answer that question?
Yeah.
And again, like I mentioned, if you are needing physical assistance with a transfer, quite often home care companies will require, because of their WorkSafe BC rules, they may require you to move to a lift transfer to prevent them from getting injury.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to mention is that there's many different types of slings out there. It's not one size fits all. There are some slings that are almost impossible to put get under you and position and put on the lift independently. But then I've also worked with people on choosing a specific type of sling that they can actually put on and off themselves. And so if you move to an overhead lift system, it doesn't automatically mean that you have dependent transfers. There might be the potential for you to be independent with them. And one specific thing Duncan wanted me to mention was the independent patient lifter. I don't know if people have had any experience with these.
Well, I have.
Okay.
I have, and basically, this is a lift system, an overhead lift system where you can be completely independent. I use it all the time, but again, it restricts where you can transfer it. This is only in my bedroom.
Yes, exactly. Now I'm going to try. I do have a video here of how it works. Let me just see if I can get it playing here. Oh, come on.
If it doesn't work, I can just tell people, you see the big black pads? You put those under your armpits, and you take the hooks and you put them under your knees. You adjust it so it sits
Oop.
right, and it just lifts you. And then you use the overhead lift to buzz over to your bed, and you drop yourself down.
Yeah, so if you see a couple of slides before, this gentleman here
Yeah,
in the right corner, top right corner, the pads are underneath his arms and the frame is kind of underneath his arms, and then the hooks are underneath his legs. Is that similar to your position, Duncan?
that's what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. So that is one, it's much easier to position yourself in that than it is a sling.
Yeah,
Whether or not there can be funding for these patient lifters, I'm not sure. I honestly have not had the opportunity to try and secure funding for them. But it's something that you can definitely explore if you're interested in it.
yeah, they're expensive though.
Yes, I think I was looking it up and I think they're around $5,500 to $6,000.
I think it was about 445, but you also have to get the overhead lift and rails to run it on. So that, it adds up to quite a bit. I was lucky in that I got mine used
Mm,
through the SCI marketplace. So
yeah.
I saved a ton of money. But you got to get lucky, and you got to keep your eyes open for that kind of stuff if you're worried about money. And you have to check your whatever healthcare program you have, if you have one. Some of them might cover it. I know that the one I have did not cover it.
Okay. I'm just
Cynthia,
saying there,
I have a
sorry.
question. I have a question about this.
Mhm.
Is this something you can use to help you transfer and use the lift independently?
Yeah. Yes, I use it all the time.
Cynthia, a little bit more about it though. Like, is this the only device that you can use to transfer with the lift independently?
No,
Well,
Cynthia
sorry.
might be able to help out here, but I think there's slings that you can do independently as well.
Yeah, so the two I moved back to this screen here. So the blue sling at the top and the gray sling at the bottom, those are different types of slings. Even though it looks like there's a lot of straps, the one on the bottom, if you don't need the head support, it's hard to see, but the sling has some head support in it, but you don't need to order it with the head support. So the sling at the bottom in the bottom picture, that has a strap that wraps around your chest, and then it has two straps that go under your legs. So if people have a lift and they want to be independent with doing a lift transfer, then I often will look at this style of sling for them. It will have usually four straps that you have to loop through the bar. But it's much easier to put under and remove than the much larger fabric sling that's at the top picture there. And then oftentimes, you can work with an OT to try and adapt the sling so that you can be independent. So for example, the strap that goes around the chest, that's often closed with either a buckle or Velcro or both. And so I've adapted it to include kind of loops that people can put their hand through so that they put their hand through it and then pull it open. That type of idea.
Okay, great stuff.
Okay. So it's too bad that video is not working. Let's see. So are we ready to move on to just some bathroom equipment? This probably
Yeah.
won't take very long. So there's a whole bunch of different bathroom equipment that can be helpful at making your transfers a little bit easier. There's, from kind of the entry level, let's say there's a padded raised toilet seat where you can change the height of the toilet seat, especially if you have a low seat. So this can be helpful for doing level transfers. You can also get the same idea, but with handles. So you've got something to hold on to. There's also something called a tub slide system. So if you have a toilet next to your bathtub or shower, you can do it so you transfer onto the toilet seat part of it, and then you just slide over into the shower. So you don't have to do a separate transfer. Of course, there's the padded bath bench that people can use if some people are still sitting on the bottom of the tub for showering. So this would be when that transfer, and we don't actually recommend that anymore because when you're kind of reaching up high and then pushing down, that is a very unstable position for your shoulder and high risk for injury. There's the self-propelled commodes. So that's another way of you can transfer it from your bed into a commode and wheel into your bathroom. And then there's a powered bath lift where you can transfer onto it and it can take you up and down instead of having to transfer out of the bottom of a bathtub. So that's just an idea of things that are out there that can make things a little bit easier. You can also look at different bathroom adaptations. Or adaptations. So a lot of people will knock out their walk-in shower or bathtub and create a wheel-in shower or something that we call a wet room. So it's a shower that doesn't really have any walls to it. With an overhead lift system, you can get ones that don't require really any drilling into ceilings or walls or anything. So this one here, on the right of the screen, it's what we call a four-post system or a two-post system. So it uses tension. So this can be tension poles for the track system. So this can be really good for putting in a bathroom or putting in a bedroom without having to do any type of construction. So a lot of people who rent places will use this type of a lift system. And then if you're looking at doing actual renovations, it won't pay for equipment, but if you're looking at doing actual renovations, I believe there is some type of program through CMHC, which you can apply to help with covering the cost of a renovation so that it can help you with staying in your home, living in your home.
And if you do a renovation like that, it's all tax deductible. So you can take the cost off your taxes if you pay taxes. And we've got a raised hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to mention with that bath lift, it's also a very nice thing to use, like if you had to get on and off a hand cycle, to get in and out of a kayak, or if you fell out of your wheelchair, it's something that's quite useful. You just take the wings off the side and you're able to use that for multiple purposes.
Yeah. So she's talking about the blue one in the corner of the bathroom equipment slide.
Yeah, good idea.
And that's it's a powered, well, it's battery charged and you recharge the battery and it goes up and down in your tub. So it's got suction cups on the bottom that take it down and it goes up about, I don't know, 8 or 9 inches. And then it has these wings that fold out. So it's like a sliding board.
But
But
you
if
can
you
remove
wanted to,
those wings and
yeah,
then you're able to use that anywhere. So I find it to be quite beneficial.
yeah. And I think, Paul, didn't you say that you used it once or twice to get in and out of your hand cycle too?
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
used We've got a friend who uses it to get onto his hand cycle, and I've used it to get into my kayak.
Yeah.
And yeah, works really good. Also, there's something that you can put on your toilet seat. I think it was Diane that told me about these. I've got them. They're these clip-on rubber pad things. I don't know where she ever got me onto them from, but you can clip them on, which raises your position about 2 inches, and that's
they're-
quite nice to have on the
And they're
toilet
padded,
seats.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They come in 1 inch or 2 inch, but yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kim's got her hand up.
Diane, I really like your ideas because Marnie and I were wanting to get on a bike and it's really hard to figure out how to get on and off. So I like the idea of the lift for that reason. But I'm just wondering if you fell out of your wheelchair, how that powered lift would be beneficial because you'd most likely have to slide somewhere to get to it. I have a friend who's an older quad and he kind of crawled across the floor and ended up with a wound that I don't know if it's ever even healed. So I'm afraid of doing that, to be honest, just because we could get a wound.
I mean, ultimately, if you had enough money, it'd be nice to have one in every room.
Yeah.
But even if you left it in one room, you're right, you'd have to bum yourself to that bath lift. But in the garage, that's where I have my hand cycle. So if I fall out of my chair in the garage, I know that's one way I can get back up because it starts at ground level and goes all the way up.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea for sure.
If it's close, yeah, it's probably a good idea. Heather Lamb just put in the chat box a link to the renovation and home repair programs that are available for bathroom and kitchen renovations. Is that right, Heather?
Yes, that's right. And
Okay.
if you have any questions about it, just call info line and we'll help give you some other ideas.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to move on to talking about car transfers?
Yes.
Okay, thanks everyone for that conversation about the bath lift. That's actually not something using it for transfers outside of the house. I hadn't actually considered that before, so that's really great. I love to learn from everybody. So car transfers, these are always really hard transfers to do, and because it's very rare that it's the same level as your wheelchair. So transferring between different levels of surfaces is really challenging, and it gets more challenging as you get older. So there's a wide variety of car transfer aids, both if you're going to be a passenger and then also if you're going to be a driver. So it can be as simple as a slider sheet or a transfer board to
So
more, sorry?
that transfer board that Cynthia has pictured there in the bottom right-hand corner, that flips up or flips down, so it's not in the way when you close the door, and you just open your door, flip it down, and you have a spot to transfer onto to make it more of a slide than a bump.
Yeah, so that would be really nice so that you don't have to lug around a sliding board with you. And, it's a very stable surface. And then there's, higher end transfer aids like lifts, the driver's seat that pivots and actually lowers down. That's mechanical. So there's lots of different options. There are ones where you can have a vehicle where it's like a mechanical arm that will come out and be attached to your chair and then lift the chair into the passenger side or in the back of the car. So there's lots of different options and there's a handful of, you guys might know this more than I do because admittedly driver rehab is not my area of expertise, but I believe there are a handful of car companies that actually have some wheelchair accessible options. So I don't know if it's still in production, but I remember the Mazda 5 had a specific arm, a mechanical arm that you could order with the vehicle. I believe Ed Bell had it. Anyhow, there's lots of different options that can be from quite simple to more involved, but both for transferring as a driver and then also as a passenger. So there's lots of different van options that you can do, where you can do a rear entry or side entry, where you don't even need to get out of your wheelchair, and you can either wheel in and be a passenger, or you can wheel in and be a driver. Any questions about any of that?
I will say something in that if you're at the point where you think you might have to get a van that's just come up here, you need to do it while you're still working, because there is a program out there that will pay for the adaptations if you're working. But if you're not working, the program's not available to you.
Duncan, are you talking about through Tetra or Neil Squire?
No, I'm talking about through WorkSafe
Oh, okay.
I actually think it's Work BC, isn't it?
or Work BC. I can't remember the exact. They change their names all the time, but yeah,
I think they won't necessarily pay for the vehicle, but they will pay for the modifications if you
exactly.
have to drive to work.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
exactly.
Yes.
And it is, Neil Squire does help with that as well.
Yes, they
Yes,
do.
but the
Well-
reason I was asking is because I'm pretty sure Neil Squire said that program's ending in about 2 years. So you need to get your application in soon. If
Yeah.
that's the one
Yeah,
you're.
it was Neil Squire, WorkSafe BC. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
And
Yeah.
and you know, if you are even thinking about it, it's $50,000. So, you know, you need to think about it if you're going to.
I'm not sure if it is just for paid employment. I'm not sure if it would also apply to any type of structured volunteer. I'm not clear on that one. I haven't applied to it in a while.
It's strictly paid. It used to be.
It used to
volunteer.
be, because I know someone who got it maybe 6 or 7 years ago, but they changed it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's only work now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so as you can see on this slide, there's a couple of different options that you could look at. There is one, this is, again, these YouTube links aren't working for some reason, which is really frustrating. There is a type of modification where you can take a driver's seat in and out. So if you're sharing a vehicle with someone in your home, there is a pretty easy system where you can click it into place if someone who isn't in a wheelchair can drive it, or you can wheel it out of the van and then it can be wheelchair accessible. So that's a pretty cool function for people who are sharing a vehicle.
And it works. I have it.
Is that what you have?
Yeah.
Are people familiar with the docking systems for wheelchair accessible vans?
Now, I asked Cynthia to put this in because I'm sure that people, some people might not be aware of how many options there are.
Yeah, so there's kind of two main types of docking systems. When we're talking about docking systems, we're really talking about a way to secure your wheelchair when you're driving in a vehicle. So I've got all these links for all these great videos which aren't working.
They're not working.
Which is really frustrating. So yeah, with the there's a couple of different manufacturer names. Easy Lock, Q-Straight. These are Sherlock. They're all very similar. They're just slightly different in how they go about with the different mechanism of locking or parts that they use, but it basically is you can wheel in. With the automatic ones is you wheel in, whether you have a manual or a power, and you just kind of wheel over an anchoring system, and then it kind of clicks into place. And then there's a way of unlocking it automatically when you want to kind of release it. So let's see. So this is the manual version of it. So the manual version of it is less expensive, and it's what you will see in wheelchair accessible taxis.
Yeah.
But it's very challenging for someone to be independent with this type of a system. But it does work. And then it would have been in this video here with the automatic system. What it is there's a pin that is installed at the bottom of your wheelchair, whether that be a manual or a power. And it's usually about a 2 or 3 inch pin, looks like a thick bolt. And you kind of line it up with this anchoring system, which is installed on the floor of your vehicle, wherever you want to be, whether that be as a passenger or a driver, and you wheel in, and it will lock when you wheel in. And then most of them have an electronic system where you push a button, and it will unlock it when you're done. So
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has experience with this and wants to explain a little bit further, but that's kind of the basic of it.
Yeah, it's basically a pin sticking down from your chair that they have to weld on. They have to secure it. And it can be from a manual chair or a power chair. I didn't know that they could do it to manual chairs for a while. Now I know that.
Mm-hmm.
And you simply wheel into this lock. It's like it's on the floor of your van, and it's very easy. Like you just wheel in and it clicks, and it'll give you a green light on the dashboard that you're locked in, and then you're ready to go. And when you want to get out, there's a button on the dash that you press, and it unlocks, and off you go.
Can I just add something that a friend of mine who's in a power chair actually had this, and it worked for the van. However, his clearance for the chair got really small, so he was getting stuck on curbs often.
Yeah,
So
that
that's
is
just
an issue that you
something
have to
to,
watch out for.
yeah.
I don't know if that's improved over time because mine's not too bad, but it does hit every once in a while. Like the clearance, you have to remember clearance.
Yeah, and
Marnie's got her
so
hand up.
I'm
And
just curious with the manual chair docking, like, is there a headrest that, how does that
No,
work?
that's an issue that you have to figure out with whoever's installing your van. I know I have a friend who has a manual chair system, and he has a headrest that the company that he got everything installed with created that comes down from the side of the van. So it's bolted on the side and it pops down when he's driving.
Okay, yeah, that'll work.
It's something you have to consider though.
yeah, and I have had some people who work with your wheelchair vendor to get a headrest, also the ability, a headrest bracket to put on the back of their manual wheelchair. So there's a couple of different ways of figuring that one out, but it is possible to have it on a manual chair.
All right, I'm going to we're after 2 now, so I'm going to sort of say as a last call for questions. Anybody else have anything else they really want to know? Oh, I see this. Wheelchair
I
van costs.
This
oh
is new. This is if it's going new, not necessarily if it's used. So
Yes. And I can
highly
tell you
variable.
the adaptations, I got my van 2 years ago, I think it was, and the adaptations were almost $60,000. And I know they've gone up since then. They keep going up.
But there are places where you can see them, you can find them for previously owned. So I just put a couple down there.
Yep.
But if you have patience and if you are pretty diligent about looking often, chances are you will be able to find something that comes up.
Yeah. So it's something that people should start thinking about at some point, but I don't want to push anybody. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, and I just listed some different funding options for any types of equipment. I mean, this can be also for driving. Driving modifications are hard to get funding for. It's not that it doesn't happen. WorkSafe is pretty straightforward with it. ICBC is pretty good about it. Extended health benefits for specific for the driving modifications, not so much, but for the other types of things like lifts, transfer aids, bathroom equipment, they're pretty good for covering that. FNHA can be a source.
There's no yellow.
And then you can also look at different foundations to access funding, which have a much wider breadth of equipment they'll fund. things like Kinsman, Rotary, BC Rehab Foundation. These are quite often when I'm getting funding for different types of equipment. Sometimes you piece it together with 2 or 3 different sources.
Okay, we've got one question from Linda. Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, just a comment, when I'm looking at the funding options, there's a program called Happy Home Adaptation for Independence. It's a federal government program. And if you qualify or, and it really doesn't take much to qualify, they will fund 80% of your home adaptations. Like I had them when I renovated my bathrooms and they did that. The other thing I was going to say is I have a dentist that will do my dental work in my power chair.
So do I.
And it's Metropole, and you can go there and just tell them you're supposed to have a headrest. I didn't have a headrest last time, but they just put pillows behind me and they'll do my dental work in the chair.
Okay, you can check that with any of your dentists. They
Yeah.
might do it.
They might. Yeah, I know this
and-
guy does specifically.
Yeah, and I think with that, I'm going to let Cynthia go because she probably has an appointment at 2. But thank you, Cynthia. This has been fantastic. I think you've hit on everything that I was really wanting to get touched on. And we'll have a discussion group in a couple of weeks, and I'm sure people will bring up stuff that maybe they're not thinking about. Oh, you've still got more stuff to go though. Do you want to go over this?
I can just really quickly,
Okay.
I don't have anything I'm rushing to. So if people want, I can spend about 5 more minutes
Okay,
online.
that's great.
So yeah, just some things we talk about when someone comes to us and is struggling with their transfers is we really have people, consider their environment, and are there certain environments where they can make the transfers easier. Reducing the overall number of transfers that you need to do over a day. So for example, if people are used to getting out of their wheelchair in the middle of the day and having a bit of a rest, if they have a power wheelchair with tilt, we'll talk to them about what about just going all the way back into tilt and having a rest instead of going into bed. Trying as best as possible to do transfers between level surfaces if you're doing manual transfers. Trying to keep your arms as close to your body as possible, because when your arms are outstretched, that's when your shoulder is at a higher risk of injury. So we talk about keeping your arms close to your body as much as possible. Wearing low friction pants can be really helpful. I mean, yeah, there's always sometimes, you improve one thing and cause a problem for another. So it could be that wearing low friction pants might be a problem for your positioning in your wheelchair and maintaining your positioning. But if it's not, like nylon pants or low friction pants can make transfers easier. As much as possible, doing slow, smooth, controlled movements. We really, tell people don't rush a transfer. If you can, still alternating which side you transfer out of, so you're not always putting the strain on the same shoulder. Trying his best to maintain a healthy weight can be really helpful for reducing your risk of injury. Maintaining a regular shoulder and arm strengthening exercise program. And when I say regular, that would be 2 to 3 times a week. Really trying to keep those muscles strong, keep the joints lubricated, will be really helpful at injury prevention. And then looking at making transfers as easy as possible where you can is really important. Now, if you are interested in, you guys already probably know all of this, but if you want to explore different transfer techniques, if you need help with your equipment, home renovations, or funding, you can self-refer to your local community health unit. So you would just find out what's the health unit in your area and give them a call and say you'd like an OT because you are concerned about your wheelchair transfers. Just as a little hint, if you tell them that, I'm concerned I'm going to put myself at risk for falling out of my wheelchair, then that triages you up to the top of the list when you are considering trying to access community health services. And And then if you're working with an OT in the community or you want some spine specific rehab services, you can always get referred to our outpatient program. We work with people all throughout BC and Yukon. You just require a physician or a clinician referral, and you can just Google GF Strong Outpatient Program referral form. The referral form for the SCI program is the same as all the other programs, outpatient programs at GF Strong, so it is a general referral form. The wait time varies, but again, if you are concerned, if your transfers are feeling like they're unsafe, then you put that on a referral and that will prioritize it. Okay.
Oh,
If anyone wants to get in touch with me after the fact, after this presentation, that's my email. Feel free to reach out to me and I will do the best I can to help you out.
Thank you, Cynthia. I just have a question that I just posted in there in the chat, and I guess it got lost. The Sure Hands system, as far as I have read somewhere, it's not for someone who doesn't have upper body strength. Have you had any experience using with someone using it who does not have it due to, let's say, a neuromuscular disorder?
Yeah.
Well, what I can say is I have limited experience with the Sure Hands or the independent patient lifter.
Mhm.
It is not all that popular, but I do know people who have used it with cervical injuries and don't have a lot of upper body strength or trunk control.
Okay. So it might be possible.
It's
Yeah.
not you don't need trunk control, that's for sure.
Mhm.
You might need a little bit of shoulder strength. I'm not sure because you want to keep your
Uh,
shoulders on those pads.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's it. Cynthia, thank you very,
Okay.
very
Yep.
much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Cynthia.
This was
Thanks,
great.
Duncan.
But that was great. Cynthia, thank you again.